Frantic, he runs inside and calls the police.
Yeah, that would mess you up if you found a dead body just right there outside your house.
Investigators show up, determine that the rope had likely been used to drag the woman's body across the yard. Her jacket, shoes, and underwear are found about 50 feet from her body in the yard, covered in blood. Inside, they find blood on the walls, like blood spatter, and it's clear that in some places there's been an attempt to clean it up.
Right.
They find a fire poker in the living room. It's just covered in blood. There's a hammer found outside near the body, also covered in blood. An autopsy revealed a horrific murder. Lee had been severely beaten and had multiple skull fractures. She was stabbed in the neck, the jawbone. She had multiple stab wounds in the chest area, the back, the stomach. The medical examiner said the wounds were so deep and forceful that someone had to take this hammer and likely drive like a Bowie knife.
What the hell?
Possibly this fire poker into the body.
Like they're pounding it in there with another object.
To produce the kind of stab wounds that she had. They were big, they were very, very deep and so forceful that it would take, you'd have to be like Andre the Giant or something to be able to stab and wound and puncture this body
right
the way it had been.
Okay, that's freaking crazy.
Her body was badly bruised and beaten. Before she had died, they could tell, like, before she had been killed, she had been beaten severely and with hands. Like, all along her thighs and legs, she had big bruise marks that looked like someone had punched.
So
like
this
with
is
a fist.
Just unfettered rage. Multiple objects, knife, poker, fist. Oh, all kinds of, wounds. This doesn't happen quickly. This is extended, right?
Yes.
It's bashed, beat. This is horrible.
Yes. One of the detectives in an interview later would say that this was like the worst crime scene he'd ever seen.
Well, yeah, she just, not that being killed
viciously.
But yeah, she suffered. This was extended, and it was just I'm sure a lot of it was post-mortem. The guy just kept on and on. You know what I mean? Damn, yeah. That's just a maniacal, really. Just totally uncontrolled. Sounds like.
The medical examiner also found sperm inside of her.
Okay, so.
But they don't know if this was a consensual.
If they'd had consensual sex and then all this other stuff happened.
Yeah, they couldn't really determine, and because she was so badly attacked, whether she'd been raped or if they'd had consensual sex at some point.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if it matters for that poor girl at that point. You know what I mean?
David is apprehended in Columbus, Ohio on May 29th, 1998. So just within a week of this murder. After he had tried to pass a counterfeit bill in a bar.
So he's just off doing his same shitbird moves somewhere else. That's his way of getting out of there.
And because he was arrested on trying to pass this counterfeit money, the Secret Service actually comes to arrest him.
Yep.
And while they have him in custody, they soon realize he is wanted in Tennessee for murder.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize the Secret Service's first job was about the currency and tracking counterfeit and stuff like that.
Once he's in custody, during a police interview, David says he was high on LSD and drunk on the evening of the date. At first, he says he can't remember anything. He doesn't remember anything that happened. He eventually tells them that they went on the date. He remembered going to the bar. He remembered going home. He said he wasn't sure if they'd gone to the library. He couldn't remember. That he knew when they were going back to the house in the taxi that he was kind of feeling sick. That Lee wanted to go inside and talk, so they sat down in the living room, kind of near the fireplace. Lee was talking his ear off, kind of getting on his nerves. She had asked him, like, what his plans were for the future. He told her that he was going to leave and go back to Texas. She became upset. mean, you have to remember, she's got like a childlike mind.
Right.
She just met this guy. She really likes him. So I'm sure that when he tells her, well, I'm going to leave soon, she was like, oh, but I like you and don't leave.
Well, yeah, she's already thinking like this could be my boyfriend.
Yes.
Maybe.
She's begging him not to go and grabs his arm. When she does this, David says he snaps, goes into this blind rage, and that he hit her, and then he doesn't remember what happens next.
Yeah.
But the next thing he did remember was dragging her body outside.
Oh, wow.
He also denied having sex with her.
So in all that blackout period for him, he's on autopilot. He goes and gets multiple objects, a fire poker, knife, possibly a hammer, and brutalizes this poor girl, beats her for an extended period of time. I mean, this attack, it didn't happen quickly. And gets rope and, assumes ties her up to where he can get her moving. And does all this in this blind rage.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I'm going to call bullshit on that. I'm sorry, but continue.
In March 1982, he was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to die by electric chair. But in 1984, the state overturned the decision on the sentencing because the prosecutor had mentioned those previous rape arrests during his trial, but had not actually been convicted.
So they were just charges, rape
Yes.
charges. Okay.
And so the state determined that, I guess, was not legal or not fair. It didn't give him a fair trial.
Yeah. Okay. So they throw out the whole conviction?
No, they didn't throw out the whole conviction. They kept the first-degree murder charge, but they knew they were going to have another trial for, like, resentencing purposes.
Okay.
However, in February of 1987, another jury decided his fate would be to die in the electric chair.
Yeah, well, all they got to do is see the pictures of this poor girl and listen to some, a couple of experts or state medical examiner tell everything that you just described. I would sentence that guy to damn death too, wouldn't you?
After exhausting appeals, Miller was finally executed 37 years after killing Lee Standifer. He was the longest serving inmate on Tennessee's death row.
37 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was in 2018 that he was executed. He was 61 years old. He selected a meal of fried chicken, mashed potatoes, biscuits, and coffee for his final meal. Now, when he was asked what his final words were, he said something that was kind of unintelligible, and they asked him to repeat himself, and he said, beats being on death row.
Yeah, he's already lived his life. I mean, a lot of it in jail, right? But, he's good.
Lee Standifer's mother, her name is Helen, and she currently lives in Arizona. She did not come back for the execution.
Yeah.
She said she didn't want to witness that, and nothing was going to bring back her daughter. This pain and suffering that she's felt was never going to go away.
Oh my God.
And that she really just didn't feel like this was going to bring any closure. She just didn't want to be part of it.
Well, it's been almost 40 years since her daughter had been killed.
Yes.
I can't speak on what that poor woman feels, but yeah, some people want to see it. It doesn't matter if it's 100 years later. Some people want to watch that person die. And if it was my kid or something, I feel like I may be that type of person. What do you think? Would you? I couldn't. You never know how you're going to deal or feel with all that.
Yeah, I think if it was someone very close to me, my husband, if it was you, if it was one of our children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care when it happened.
I would need to see that. And this case was, it's really horrific. But the execution was very controversial. Tennessee went for like a decade without executing anyone.
So kind of like what California's done recently with the governor there. He's put it all on hold. He's basically like, while I'm governor, there will be no execution.
Yeah, there was like a 10-year period where they weren't really executing people in Tennessee, but then they started up again. Within a short period of time, I think they executed like 3 people, like in the last few years.
Okay.
Which is kind of, it's a pretty good chunk of people.
Well, that's what I don't get about the death. That's the part of the death penalty I don't get. But the why it takes so long.
But there was a lot of controversy. Many groups, religious groups, anti-death groups, were advocating for David Miller, discussing his childhood, that he obviously had some mental illness, he had a lot of trauma, and that he should be spared dying. But the governor was like, nope, not going to intervene.
That's tough just because, yeah, you described not even a dog shouldn't be treated the way he was treated growing up, right?
Well, I just think you have to look at the sum of all the parts. And,
But,
I have mixed feelings about the death penalty. I mean, if we're going to get into it, sometimes I just don't know. The Innocence Project, I mean, that's proven that there are a lot of people sitting on death row that are innocent. A lot of people have been killed, and then later you find out that DNA testing, whatever, they weren't even the guilty party.
yes.
However, in certain cases like this, where without a shadow of a doubt, this guy is the killer, he's admitting to it, there's no shaggy-haired man, there's no one-armed man. I mean, we know for sure he did this.
Right.
Therefore, you have to pay something back to society for that. Like, her life means something.
Yeah, well, exactly. Exactly. The way you're describing it is exactly how I feel about the death penalty. A lot of people ended up on death row back in the day. We all know, or a lot of us realize, eyewitness testimony, and we realize that that's very, you can't count on that. Just because of the way the human brain works, people sometimes put their own prejudices in there and all this stuff. And you get a prosecutor who's really zealous about getting this done. And so, yes, an innocent person being killed in any state on their death row is the only qualm I have about it, honestly. But if you get to the modern day and people are beyond a shadow of a doubt, all the forensic sciences, all the DNA, all these things that can prove 100% that you're the one, there still needs to be a vetting process. There still needs to be, double check everything. But I think that shit needs to be streamlined down to 6 months, okay? And needs to fast track these people in these certain sets of circumstances.
Well, no one should sit on death row for almost 40 fucking years.
No, because what price did you pay? What price did you pay? You was living this, you were shitty at adulting. You had a horrible childhood. Yeah, I know you did. But guess what? Other people have horrible childhoods too. And that doesn't give you a right to kill someone.
Yes,
he would have killed again.
Well, that's the thing. His behavior escalated. I mean, he went from just doing, petty things, getting in a fight,
just being
doing drugs,
socially an antisocial person who doesn't relate well with others,
to assaulting women,
to alleged rape charges, multiple.
I mean, yeah.
He was. It's his textbook. Right. He was practicing all the antisocial behaviors, the rage he felt towards his mother, all the crazy, horrible shit that did happen to him growing up in his developmental years, and he would have killed again. And that poor girl, that poor woman, he killed her for just absolutely no reason. I'm thinking, my theory, I don't know if you can trust exactly what he said, even though I think they were having consensual sex, and I think it could have been her first time, right?
Yeah.
If this is her first boyfriend.
This is her first date.
Her first date. And she's, grown. And that something happened, or she said something, or said no, or did something he didn't like, and then, or they're just having normal consensual sex. In his brain, all the shit that happened, all the stuff with his mom, and all that rape and abuse somehow spilled over. And he flew in, I don't know. Who knows? I'm just speculating in my own mind.
There have been others who've theorized a similar scenario.
Or she's like, no, I'm not ready for all this, or I don't want to do this, or you want to get her to do something crazy or adventurous. And she, at some point, just turned him, no. And then he just flew up. But that unfettered rage, and he would have done that again.
I agree.
He would have done, he was a serial killer who didn't know how to go about it. You know what I mean? It's like he didn't have, because they're typically intelligent, right? To set up their whole thing, the hunting and the, all that stuff they get into. I think he lacked some mental capacity to take it to the next level.
Yeah, he wasn't calculating.
Right.
He didn't premeditate this likely.
Right. Yes. Exactly. But if he had those tools to go along with it, he had everything else in the bag. He was just missing on some of the intellectual capacity and the calculation, and he would have been a full-blown serial killer.
Right. And to your point, you brought up, okay, so he did have this terrible